Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of the Women's Holistic Health Conference. I'm Ire. I'm back with our two speakers that are coming today. We have Tess and Jamie today. We're going to start off with Jamie and then move on into Tess's speech after that. But I'm super excited for both of these women to be here with me today. They are both amazing and wonderful. Jamie has a lot to say about herbs and nutrition and all this stuff for stress and burnout, which is going to be super amazing information to know for you. And then Tess is going to come and talk about owning our voices and using them for healing our bodies, our spirits, our minds, all the different stuff. So both super amazing topics. Glad you guys can be here. So we will go ahead and just jump right in with Jamie, and then we will move on to Tess afterwards. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Ire. How are you?
I am good. I am excited to talk about our topic today because we are very much on the same page about this. And, I have that herbalist side of me too. So it's like super great to be able to talk to a fellow herbalist. So, everybody, Jamie is a herbalist and a healer, and she'll tell you more. But she is somebody that I know and I trust, and I am blessed to have here with me. Her and I went to the same school of herbalism, so like I know that she's really good at what she does because she got the same training that I got. So I trust what she has to say, and I'll let her do a brief intro, and then we'll dive right in.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm an herbalist and healer. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I do a lot of virtual one-on-one um, meetings with clients, and I'm also starting to work with a healing center in the area. I've been deep diving into herbalism for the past 4 years, and I've been in the alternative health world for about 15. So, a lot of my clients and women that I work with are women and mothers that are dealing with stress and burnout and exhaustion. And I'm happy to come here and kind of share some common things that help for those issues.
Yeah, definitely. It's such an important thing because I find that too. So many women are so burned out and stressed out from having to be or feeling like they have to be like super parents. You got to be the super mom who's on all the time for the kids, but then you also have to work a job that's 40 hours a week minimum, and then you got to like take care of the whole household. There's like so much expectations and things that we have to do, and it gets exhausting quickly because our bodies as women are not designed to just be going, 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 going all the time, right? We're cyclical beings, and when we don't get to live in
hmm
those cycles, it really messes up our health. So, what got you started initially in like specializing in that? Was that like something came from like a personal thing of your own that you dealt with?
Yeah, so I guess at this point it was about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was going to a naturopath because I just felt like crap. I wasn't happy. Um, my sex drive was super low, so my husband at that time was complaining, and I thought there was something wrong with me, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go see a naturopath. And I did some testing, and we ended up testing my cortisol levels. And I was, 26 or so, like in my mid 20s at this time. And my results came back, and she said, your cortisol is off the charts, and it is going to physically change your DNA if you don't do something about it. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I didn't realize that I was that stressed. I did not,
Yeah.
it had become my normal day to day that I didn't even realize
Mm-hmm.
I was that bad. And it wasn't until that moment that I was sitting there that I even realized that there was an issue. I knew that there were, I knew that I wasn't super happy, but I didn't realize how much that was physically,
Mm-hmm.
affecting me. And I remember thinking, okay, now what? Like you just told me, you just told me that I'm so stressed that
Right.
it's like changing my DNA, but like haven't really given me anything to do with that.
Yeah.
She wasn't comfortable recommending herbs. She didn't really talk about diet either. She kind of just dropped this bomb on me and was like, okay. And
There
I
you
just
go.
remember feeling so, yeah. I remember feeling so more stressed. Um, I was
Yeah.
more stressed and just felt like I didn't know where to look. I didn't know where to find information that would really help me. Um, and so I just wish that there was someone that I could have gone to at that time that was like, hey, you've got this. Like,
Hmm.
this is totally something that we can do together. Like, you have the support. You can heal this. Like, you can get through
Hmm.
this. Like, this doesn't have to be your day to day. You don't have to live like this. And it's almost like you don't even realize the fog is there until it's gone. And
Yeah.
then as you start to heal, you're like, oh, I don't have to feel like that. And that kind of it's just amazing as you start to heal and realize that there's a different life that's available to you if you have the support that you need.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, that story resonates so much with me because I had a similar thing happen where I went to the doctor because I was having a bunch of like, period issues. They were super painful all of a sudden when they hadn't
Hmm.
been before. So it was like a major change, right? And I was obviously concerned. I was also only 19, but having horrible hot flashes right before my period came. Like, I mean, I was literally to the point where I got one that was so bad one time. It was the middle of winter, and I literally went outside and laid in the snow like with
Mm.
only a t-shirt and shorts on in the dead of winter. And anybody who knows me knows I hate cold weather. I don't even like being outside in it, much less going and laying in a shorts and t-shirt. And I was so hot physically, I was melting the snow around me. Like the snow was melting as I was there, and I was burning up. And I'm sitting like, I am only like 19, 20 years old. I should not be having hot flashes like this. Something is wrong. And of course, you know, before Google was really like a huge thing. And so there wasn't like I
Right.
could just Google to figure it out, but I had actually read an article like a week or two before that in a magazine that was talking about somebody who went into like premature menopause at like 19, 20 years old. And her first
Mm.
symptom was hot flashes. So I'm like, holy cow, I'm dying. I'm literally. So I went to the doctor, and after some testing, they were just basically like, we can't really find anything wrong with you. So here, just take these birth control pills. And I was like, I'm not
Ugh.
supposed to be having hot flashes at 19. Like, come on. And I finally did find a doctor who actually listened and did some more like stuff and then told me, well, you have endometriosis. And I was like, okay, well, now what do we do? Oh, well, there's nothing we can do. And they just like kicked me
Oh,
out of the office basically. And I was like, this is not helpful. Like, why tell us that I have something if then you're not going to give us any steps to fix it? It's so frustrating. And I talk to so many
yeah,
women who get that same thing. And I'm sure you do too, because you work with,
yeah,
women also who are going through similar stuff. And it's so frustrating to hear that and then feel like now we're the last resort for them. Like they're literally coming to us where
right.
they're so exhausted, so stressed out, so everything that now even our modality, which is wonderful and I love it, and herbs are amazing, and I believe in their healing power so much, are now going to take such a long time to work because they're so depleted that then they're also like, well, it's not working and they want to give up. And it makes it hard
Yeah,
to really work with a client who's in that state because they are just so utterly exhausted. Do you find that with your clients frequently too?
yeah. And I think because I've been there, it helps me a little bit talk with them and help them to understand because I don't even when I was in the depths of healing, and I'm still in the depths of healing it, burnout takes years. It takes
Yes.
years. I didn't realize that when I first, realized that that's what was happening. And I was reading an article. It was like it takes years to come back from that for your body to physically heal from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so frustrating to feel like that. And so yeah, I do meet that a lot with some of my clients, and we just that's why women especially we heal in a community of support because we need to feel heard and we need to know that we're not just being dismissed. Sometimes I think
Yes.
clients that get frustrated like that are thinking that I'm dismissing them or thinking, oh, okay, well, that's it. Like that herb didn't work for you
Yeah.
in a month, so you're done. And
Yeah.
that's
That's it. No
definitely
more.
not what
Mm-hmm.
happens. That's
Yeah.
absolutely not what happens. Like herbs work. There's just different herbs for different people, and just because you haven't found the one that works for you yet, or you haven't found the blend that works for you yet, doesn't mean that it's not out there,
Yeah.
or
And
that it
I
might just
think
not take a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that people are so used to pharmaceutical drugs where you take it and within usually 24 to 48 hours, you start noticing a difference, or there's a notable effect of some sort that they expect and think that herbs work the same way. And that's not always
Yeah,
true. There are some herbs that you will notice an effect fairly quickly, depending on what we're using it for and what it's for, right? And all that. But for the most part, for ones like this that you're dealing with stress and burnout and like deep nutritional deficits that you have to do the deep, really long infusions that take for, those are the ones that don't necessarily work overnight and it takes time
right.
for them to see a difference. And so I think it's really important to work with someone like yourself who has that experience of doing it yourself, has worked with other people and can mitigate those fears or those, oh, well, it's not working. So it's just one more thing that's not going to work for me. Right? Do you think
Right.
that's important too in this whole grand scheme of things?
Right, yeah, absolutely. And there's also, herbs I love, and it is a modality that I love, but that's not the only piece that's there. A lot of times we have to go into that nervous system and those
Mm-hmm.
subconscious beliefs because we've had so much experience, in our physical reality of that we aren't able to heal, that we have those subconscious blocks that are telling us that we can't heal ourselves and that we
Mm-hmm.
need to go on pharmaceuticals or that we need, and I'm not here to say that pharmaceuticals don't work, um, and that they're
No.
not needed at certain times. They absolutely are needed at certain times. They're life saving.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they're overprescribed and that the deep nutritional deficits, like you were saying, are overlooked so often,
Mm-hmm.
that that's a large piece to look at too. So we've got that
Yeah.
emotional, subconscious side, that energetic side, and then that deep physical, deficit that all plays into this.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's so important, I find personally, to find a practitioner who is very holistic in their approach, such as yourself, who really looks at that whole piece, mind, body, spirit, nervous system, all the other pieces that come in. And it's not just, oh, here, take this, whatever, and, come back in 30 days and
Right.
see me, right? Because you understand there's
Yeah.
more to it than just taking this one thing. You're so right when it's like we got to work on the mindset sometimes and we got to work on regulating the nervous system. And if you do too much of that at once, the body also gets overwhelmed and then you got to,
Right.
so it's really important to work with like Jamie to come up with a plan where you kind of baby step your way through those so you can work on it slowly and integrate things at a speed that your body can handle at that moment in time.
Absolutely. And I've had clients tell me, like at our first session, I don't want to be overwhelmed. I'm doing this
Mm-hmm.
and that. I'm all over the place. I've got to work. I've got kids. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
change my entire life. And that's not, creating overwhelm in our nervous system is not going to help balance it to get to that rest, digest, heal. So that's
Mm-hmm.
not what we're here to do. We're here to make slow but really deep shifts.
Yeah. Yep. Baby stepping your way to help is sometimes the best way to do it. And it
Yeah,
feels weird when you first start because we're not used to that. In our society, everything is so fast, fast, fast. We want to get results now, now, now,
right.
that can feel unsafe and overwhelming even sometimes to go slow. So it's so important to
Hmm.
have, that support that says, hey, no, this is normal. And yes, it's okay to take, your time and yeah, to really work with someone where they're at currently.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Hmm. So when it comes to like stress and burnout, are there any like favorite herbs that you turn to like time and again more often than others? And if there are, what are those? And can you give kind of like a brief rundown on each one for people?
Oh yeah. So I do have like I think I chose like my top four to talk about.
Perfect.
And obviously there are a lot more options out there. And I always tell people like there's so many different herbs that you can choose from. There's just certain herbs that have more of an affinity for certain mental pictures or physical aspects or things
Hmm.
like that. And so these are the common ones, but it's not the end all be all. If one of these didn't work for you, that's especially when I'm working with someone one on one, like I love kind of doing that figuring out as to which herb is really calling for you,
Hmm.
to be like that plant ally. But yeah, the first one, my absolute favorite that I find myself putting into a lot of tea blends is milky oats.
Oh my God, same
And
here.
I love Milky Oats. I have like a love affair with Milky Oats. I almost always have some in an
Yes.
infusion on my counter. But it's like food for your nervous system. And it's so
Hmm.
gentle, and there's just not many, I can't think of really any contraindications as far as someone that shouldn't take them. Um, and it's just, if you've been through long periods of stress or grief or trauma, like you feel like you're fried or frazzled, Milky Oats just really goes in there and calms and soothes the nervous system.
Hmm.
It's really rich in minerals like silica, magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, vitamins A and C. Like it's just a powerhouse, and it tastes so mild when you drink. I'll do an overnight infusion of it, and I'm like, I feel like I'm just drinking a little. It's like sweet water, um,
Yes.
but it's so potent. It's so
Yeah.
potent. Um, So yeah, that's my like number one favorite herb for burnout and stress. Um, I also want to say really quickly that do your own research if you're on like medications or anything like that. Most of these herbs are really gentle, but always
Hmm.
check for yourself. Um, Nettles are my next one, and it's always so interesting to me because people are like, "Oh, is this a calming herb?" And not really. It's not specifically like a nervine herb or sedative.
Hmm.
It's just that usually when we're so depleted, nettles are such a powerhouse of minerals that it goes into your system and like fills you up, and it makes you feel so grounded and calm.
Hmm.
And that's just because it's giving your body, like, I don't know if you've seen like Idiocracy where they're like, it gives the people what they need, but that's always what I think about, like
Yes, but it
with
does. I
nettles,
agree with
like, but
you.
it does.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
It gives your body what it needs. Um, and there's like a famous herbalist, David Hoffman, who says, "When in doubt, give nettles." And I just find that, you know, to be so true. So I will say, generally, nettles is something that I recommend, but it really is also if you're thinking about a specific person, they're the kind of person that needs to keep moving. This is like my husband to a T. He loves nettles.
Yeah, mine
And that's
too.
another thing. There are certain herbs that when you get the right herb, like when it's the one that's really calling to you at that time, you drink it and you're like, I could drink gallons of this.
Hmm.
This is amazing. Um, so that's nettles, like the who's tired and worn out, but like has to keep moving. They're hard to start, harder to stop. Um, but yeah, my favorite way to do that is nettle infusions like overnight, and also I make nettle lattes. Which I have you ever had one of those?
I don't
It
think so, but that
sounds
sounds amazing.
It did, like when I first heard of it, I was like, I don't know if that's going to be very good, but it's nettle with I do nettles in a blender with coconut milk and a date, and you
Hmm.
blend it up, and it's like mother's milk. My herbalist friend Mitten Lowe like first told me to try it like that, and holy crap, it balances the energetics of it so well too, because nettle can be kind of drying, and that coconut milk is really moistening. So
Yeah.
it's so nice. So if you haven't
Yeah,
tried that,
that would work
try it.
well because yeah, nettles has that it's a Mars remedy, so it's that drying influence sometimes. But that's good for certain things, right? But yeah, if you're already
Right.
kind of dry, that
Yeah.
latte would be perfect because that adds the moisture back
Hmm.
in that gets kind of stripped sometimes. My husband is
Yeah.
loves those. He's a Sagittarius Mars, and so I find that he just like needs so many more minerals than like maybe someone else,
Yeah.
right? Because he just burns through them. And nettles is one of his like favorite plant allies. I put it in almost every tea
Yeah.
blend that I make for him, and I make a lot of tea blends for
Oh
him because I
yeah.
make him drink tea all the time for all kinds of different reasons.
Yeah. No, that's my husband too. And he will like he's not one to usually. He'll always take what I give him and without asking, um, because he just trusts me. He's like, yeah, okay. But he will ask for nettle lattes. Like he'll be like, can you make that nettle for me? And so that's a
I'm
Beautiful,
gonna have to try
beautiful
that because my
remedy.
husband would like that. He has a real
Yeah,
thing for like oat milk too, and I don't know if that would actually work with it because I don't think it's as moisturizing as like coconut milk is.
right.
But um, if I
I
can
think
get
the
him to
taste would
drink
still
it,
be fine.
yeah, we'll try it. You can experiment, right?
Right, exactly. That's right. That's what they're there for. That's what my husband says anyways. He's like, you just need a guinea pig. Um, all right. So yeah, I could talk about nettles all like for a really long time. But to try to keep it short, lemon balm is my next favorite one.
Mm,
Um, she's so good for the heart center and the nervous system. And I really look to lemon balm when the anxiety affects your digestive system.
hmm
So, yeah, I love the smell of lemon balm. Um,
It's so good.
and we're like heading into that spring, summer where you can get fresh lemon balm. I love fresh lemon balm and
hmm
infusions and waters. Like it
Yes.
doesn't matter. I'll and using lemon balm fresh, you get a lot more of those volatile oils. So it's
hmm
even more beneficial. The dried lemon balm is still good, and I use that all the time as well. But um, when I have it available, I will tincture and make infusions with the fresh lemon balm.
hmm
It's also really good if you get that anxiety that you feel in the heart. So it's like if you ever take a moment and like really listen to your body when you're having those moments of stress or anxiety and see like try to kind of see where you feel it. If you feel it in the heart or in the stomach, like lemon balm is really good. Um, and then last but not least is Tulsi. Tulsi is an adaptogen. Yeah. Right? Like she's called
Yeah.
Queen of the Herbs for a reason.
hmm
Um,
She deserves that title,
yeah,
that's for sure.
she does. She really does. So adaptogen uh, is a type of herb that means that it literally helps your body adapt to stress. Um, so she's I love Tulsi, but she's just yeah. There's so many other things that like she's so good. She's always like in the top five for this type of thing. But I do always kind of go
hmm
for like the minerals and like high mineral content first. Um, um, yeah, so she's really good for high cortisol issues specifically also. And she's really lovely in that she's really uplifting. So when you drink Tulsi or take a Tulsi tincture in times of stress, you're like, I know I'm still stressed, but I feel fine. Like I feel like this is all okay. I have
hmm
found sometimes if I like drink a cup or something, I'm like, oh yeah, like this is actually I'll be okay. So yeah, Tulsi is definitely on there as well. And if you want to kick in any ire or if you like have any other that you want to mention, please go for
Really like a lukewarm infusion of skullcap.
it.
I've
Hmm.
found
Yeah, skullcap is another one.
if you put too hot of water on skullcap, it's like I want to say kills, but that's not really what happens. But it basically doesn't get all the yummy goodness out of it, right? It kind of, quote unquote, kills off like the good stuff you're looking for because it's too hot and it's very volatile. So you really need to keep it warm. So I like to get my water just a little bit above like room temperature. So I put it on to boil, but I don't bring it to a boil. And then I pour it, cover it, and let it sit for probably several hours, if not overnight, and then take little bits of
Yeah.
that. Oh my God, that'll if you are dealing with like stress and burnout that leads to sleeplessness and insomnia, making a really strong skullcap infusion will knock you out. My husband deals with migraines, and I have found that doing that with a little bit of valerian root in it will knock his migraines right out. Now, if I give him too much, if
Oh
I
yeah.
like dosing it too frequently, it'll knock him out, and then he'll just like when he wakes up, he's like, "Oh, I feel great now that I'm awake." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we fixed the headache, but I also gave you like 10 hours of sleep that you probably weren't looking to get." Right?
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
that
know it.
one
Yeah.
can be really good. but it can be a little sleepy inducing for some people. So it's something that I usually recommend that you start off taking at night. So if it does do that, hey, you're just sleeping. You don't have to worry about trying to drive to work or something. So definitely,
Right.
just see how it works for your body, always how these work for your specific body, because everybody is different, right?
Yeah.
And it may not make Jamie sleepy, but it'll knock me on my ass, right? So you just have to, learn
Right.
that. The other one that I like, but also it can be very drying. So if you already have a dry constitution, you'll need to mix it with something moisturizing, like Jamie was talking about earlier with the nettles, and is hops. Those, just the smell of
I love
hops. I
hops.
had a bag of hops spill in our van underneath my bed, and for night, several days in a row, I was like, why am I so sleepy? Like, I cannot get awake. Like, I was sleeping, and I was like, okay, I get that I'm like not a person who has like tons of energy to begin with, but come on. And I realized, I was like, after a minute, I was like, what is that smell? I smell something and I went and opened up the back doors and realized there's a whole bunch of hops spilled there. And I was like, oh, one of my bags burst open. I had just gotten a brand new bag of hops, but hadn't put
Yep.
it up in my container yet because I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And it had, on one of our bumpy trips, it had kind of broken open and hops were everywhere. And I was like, that explains why I'm so sleepy. So they're very good in
Yeah.
calming. It's
Yeah.
very bitter because, we make beer from hops. Anybody who drinks beer knows that, beer can be very bitter tasting, and that's from those hops. So it's not for everybody either because people really hate that taste. I personally don't like the taste, so I take
Yeah.
it in a tincture form instead of a tea form, which kind of helps a little bit. But that's another one of my favorites too. It's very good for many, many people to help with that. But again, very drying, so you need to add something else in with it to kind of mitigate that, if you already have a
Yeah.
dry issue.
I was gonna say hops and milky oats are a really nice combination too because the milky oats are a
Mm-hmm.
little moistening to help
Yes.
with that dryness. But I'm really glad that you brought up about the skull cap. About this, it depends on who's taking it. Like sometimes they can get sleepy and sometimes they can't. Tulsi is also one of those because it's an adaptogen. I've had some clients that are like, "Oh, you can drink Tulsi in the middle of the day," and I'm like, "Yes, because that's not how it affects me.
Uh-huh.
When I drink Tulsi, I feel calm, but I don't feel tired. But there are some people that drink Tulsi, and in their bodies, they feel tired. So
Yes.
that is another remedy that you want to try in the evening first. It's not it I haven't found I maybe and maybe Ira you can say if you've seen this in someone, but I haven't found that it really like is energizing. So typically in the late afternoon is a good time to test it, but I have
Yeah.
found it can be sleepy.
Yeah. I find that with a lot of adaptogens, honestly, in my practice. Everybody's like, oh, ashwagandha. I went for a while, I was, working with um women too who were a little stressed and burned out, and they were like, oh well,
Yeah,
my doctor told me to take ashwagandha and all I did was sleep, and I see that it would give me energy, and I was like, not necessarily, because it's an adaptogen and it'll give you what your body needs. And right now you're so stressed out, your body thinks that you just need some sleep because it needs to repair things and it needs to do what it does when you're resting, and it needs you to rest, and the only way that it's going to get you to rest apparently is to knock you out, because you're just going to keep going
right,
and work through this anyway, right? I said herbs are very wise and they have millennia of wisdom inside of them, and it'll give you what it knows you need, even if that's not what you want to get
right.
from that. So I
Especially
found many, many
adaptogen.
times. Yes, especially adaptogens. And I found that many people are like, oh, well, I took it to get energy, but all I got was sleepiness. And I was like, yeah, because that's really what you needed. It wasn't, you didn't need energy. You didn't need more energy so you could do more things that were already stressing you out, right? You didn't need more stress. Your body was like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to sleep. And so
Yeah,
I find that those are ones too that really, personally, I believe should really just be taken under like the guidance of a qualified herbalist, because they do react so different in so many people's bodies that you could have a reaction and not even know it might be that. And or like you have the one where you're just like knocks you out, and you need to understand that before taking it, so you don't take it and then try to drive or something,
right. Exactly.
because that's a possibility. And I find that,
Mm,
more and more physicians over the years, especially as I was a nurse, were moving more and more towards trying to add herbs in and stuff to help their patients instead of doing everything pharmaceutical. But when they don't have the proper training, they would recommend things that when I would talk to the client, it would come to, well, my doctor said I should take this, and I've done their whole intake, and I'm like, oh, that is not what I would
yeah,
recommend for you. Like, at all. Like, never. It would never make it the list. And when I start talking about why I wouldn't choose that, when they're like, oh, that makes sense. So,
yeah,
again, no shade to the doctors. They're doing their best. They're all overworked in the US for sure. But if you're going to work with herbs, it really works best if you do it with a herbalist, someone who's studied them and trained with them and knows them really well, because that's our wheelhouse, right? You wouldn't go to a cardiologist for a foot problem. So you don't go to a doctor
right,
for a herbal problem. So
right.
yeah, definitely I see that. So I love that list. That was amazing. And definitely all those made my list too. So I'm glad that we're on the same page with that. Um, so now for those who are listening, they want to say, okay, well, this is great. I love this list, but how do I take them? What would you say? Like, how's the best way to take these herbs?
Yeah, so most of the ones that I mentioned, actually, I think all the ones I mentioned can be taken as infusions. An infusion is just a fancy way to say a long steeped tea. So, when we generally in the US, when we make teas, we don't steep herbal teas long enough. Um,
Mm.
for an herbal tea, you really want to always cover your teas. Any herbal tea that you make, first off, cover your tea because you're letting all of the volatile oils escape through the steam, and so you're not going to get all the medicinal benefits through it like that. So that's number one. And number two is for a tea and herbs, you want to steep at least 15 to 20 minutes. But for infusions, like what I'm talking about, you want to steep for um, a really weak infusion would be like 30 minutes if you really were impatient and just wanted something quick. But I
Mm-hmm.
typically say at least 2 hours to overnight. Um, a lot of these, because like I said, I deal with a lot of women and mothers who are already stressed and hard to find time to, and are trying to work these things into their
Mm-hmm.
routine. The easiest thing is to do an overnight infusion because if you get a French press or a mason jar and you just toss that water on there before you go to bed, the next morning you have a super potent infusion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's real, and I'll drink it like that. I don't really suggest icing infusions. If you want to stick it in the fridge for a little bit and drink it cooler, that's fine, but I really don't usually ice them or try to bring them back to like a hot temperature. If you need to warm it up a little bit, you can, but I usually drink room temperature. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can stick it, if you make a big batch, you can stick it in the fridge for up to 3 days. Um, so that's another kind of tip that people find. If
Yeah.
if you can't do that, then tinctures are a really convenient way to take those herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, in things like the milky oats and nettles, you'll strip some of the minerals from the tincturing process, but it's still better than not taking them at all. So infusions or tinctures are typically the way that I recommend. So for those four or for four herbs, that's typically the way I recommend taking them. Tulsi also makes a really lovely infused honey, which is another way that you can just add some benefits throughout your day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the nettle lattes, like I mentioned. So those are probably the top ways that I would recommend doing that.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. I tell my clients like the minimum amount they should steep their tea is 30 minutes, and longer is always better. And I work with a lot of women who are, experiencing a lot of hormonal issues and stuff, which make you tired and you don't want to do it. So I almost always tell everybody, here's how to make a large batch that you can do overnight and then drink throughout the day and throughout the, and they're also grateful. Like, oh, I thought I was going to have to make tea like 7 times a day. No,
No.
no. I actually,
No.
and I no, because I don't have time to do that. And I'm not, and I'm currently in where I would consider like a very healthy place for me personally, right? Like, and I still don't want to be making tea 7 times a day. Like, I like tea. I drink a lot of herbal tea, let's be honest, but I don't want to have to make a separate cup all the time. So I do
No.
those
Mm-mm.
as well. In fact, I have an infusion going right now that I made this morning that I boiled the water so it was just boiling because of the herbs that I had in there. I didn't want it super, hot, and I poured it over and it's just literally sitting. And now I put it out in the sun too because I'm like a huge
Oh,
believer
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
bringing in the other energies as well, and like the sun energy is also, I think, just is so healing for our bodies. So I put it out in the sun a lot to bring in some, and then I'll like put it back in here. So that'll actually be something that'll be drunk tomorrow. So it'll literally steep for 24 hours before I strain it and then start dosing it.
Yep.
So
That's what I
100%.
just finished was that's what I just finished is my infusion from almost 24 hours ago. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah, it works really well. And I have in
it
there, like, I
works.
have milky oats and I have nettles. I got some peppermint. Um, what else do I have in there? I forget what else I put in there. Oh, some rosemary,
Okay.
some California poppy, and oh, what's the other one I put in there? Some Oregon grape root. Um,
Mm.
it's an infusion for my husband actually for
I was
his
gonna say that
migraines and
sounds
stuff.
calming and grounding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for his migraines. We've been having, he gets some when like the weather shifts and there's a lot of barometric pressure changes, and we've been having like a storm system move in. So I'm letting it steep because tomorrow is supposed to be really stormy, and that way then he has it on hand that he can dose as needed throughout the day. So
Yeah.
that's why that one's steeping so long too. But I was reading a book recently, and I'd be interested to hear your take on this too, because I agree with it personally, but I always like talking to other herbalists about this. So it was written by Susan Weed, who's was a
Mm.
really popular like herbalist from way back in the day. For those listening, like, she has a lot of books that were written back in like 1980s, maybe late 80s, early 90s at the latest. This one was written in 1985 in particular, and it was herbs for like the childbearing years. So basically for the women that I work with,
Mm.
right, who are having hormonal issues and stuff. And I purposely got it because I was like, Susan Weed, I've heard a lot of people talk great about her. I love her stuff. Let me get this book too. And she was talking about how to make infusions properly. And she basically said that you should never make an infusion that is not steeped for at least 8 hours. That was her absolute minimum, was like 8 hours, like overnight. And uh, I was like, I've never thought of it that way. But I kind of agree with her that that's really, if I'm going to do it personally for myself, I do it longer than that sometimes. Most of the time I do at least 8 because I do overnight. And so I don't know. Just what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that? Do you think it's too long? Is that perfect? Does it depend on the herb?
So, I will say it probably depends on the herb, for sure. But I also really don't. So I like Susan Reed. I think she's got obviously like a plethora of information. But sometimes she's like very harsh or like I don't know. There's also a lot of
Dogmatic?
controversy surrounding her. Yeah, I don't know. So it's like a lot of black and white with her, I feel like sometimes. And I really don't, like I said, like I really try not to overwhelm clients. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell someone that if you can't do this for 8 hours, don't even bother doing it because I don't believe that. I believe that even if you can just do a 2 hour infusion because that's what you remembered to do or that's what you feel comfortable doing. Like I have some clients that they're really uncomfortable with the idea of leaving an infusion overnight. That's just like it's
Mm-hmm.
a thing for them, and that's fine. And so they're really only comfortable leaving it for 2 hours. And I wouldn't tell them like that's not beneficial, don't do it. Because
Right.
I have found benefits with doing quick infusions and things like that. Is it as potent? Like I do think an 8 hour infusion is super potent, and you're going to get a lot
Definitely.
of benefits from it. So yeah, I do absolutely agree with that. But I wouldn't say that making it another way is wrong or that you're not going to get at least some benefits out of it.
Right. I agree with her. Like I said, like I agree with it overall. Like, yes, we should steep them for probably
Right.
longer rather than shorter.
Yeah.
But I really only, you know, when I see a client is not going to be is going to be overwhelmed with maybe having to drink several cups a day that they're only steeping for 30 minutes. That's going to be too much. Then it's like, okay, yeah, let's do it overnight, or let's do it where put on the counter,
Right.
cover it, forget about it. When you stumble across it, 3-4 hours later, hey, go ahead and drink it then, right? Like, don't worry if you
Yeah.
forget to go drink it right away. So I think there's a lot of more nuance to it, because I like her stuff. You're right, she's really good about like her knowledge of herbs and stuff, but she's very dogmatic in how things need to be done. And there was like, doesn't feel like in her books, at least, I've never met the woman obviously, but like
Yeah.
she feels very much like it's, you must do it this way and that's the only right way. And I think every herbalist has to do what works best for not only themselves but also the person they're working with, right? We have to meet our clients where they are.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I do.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for Susan Weed because, like you said, like she's got a plethora of information. I have her books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have like in videos that I've seen or like blogs that she's posted. It really is like it's very black and white. It's like wrong or right, and I just don't think that that is true, especially in herbalism or in life in general. Like there's
Right.
very few things where it's like absolute where you deal in absolutes.
For sure.
So
Yep. 100% agree with that. So as far as these herbs go, if somebody's like, hey, I really like this, I can make an infusion for this long, that sounds great. Where do I get these? What are your recommended sources for like purchasing herbs that are, that for sure are going to be what you're getting? Because some places are a little shady sometimes in what they put in the bag.
yeah.
So let people know where you feel is the best place for them to purchase these.
Yeah, and I can drop that in the chat too,
Yeah,
just to
definitely.
make sure. But Star West Botanicals is a good one. Frontier Co-op actually is really well priced and has really high quality herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mountain Rose Herbs is like, I feel like it's like the herbalist standard. My only issue with them is that they're very expensive. Their shipping is, or their herbs
Yes.
are not super expensive, but their shipping is really expensive. It's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
talk to anyone. Like, I think that they're like overextended a little bit, but their
Yeah.
quality is fantastic.
Yes.
And I do love that. I do love them. And when I order from them, their herbs are always beautiful and their essential
Mm-hmm.
oils are lovely too. But their shipping is just crazy for me sometimes, and
Yeah.
it takes a
I
long
agree
time.
with
It
you
takes a
there.
long time for them to come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frontier and Star West, you can order and you'll probably have it within the next week and a half. But
Mm-hmm.
Mountain Rose, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks before it ships out.
Yeah.
Um, Milky Oats is harder to find. You can only get that from Star West or Mountain Rose. But I've just recently, I'm looking, I have my herbs near me. I just ordered from a new company because they're certified gluten free, which
Yeah.
is nice to have that, guarantee on there. I think it's
Yeah.
Oregon's Best or something like that. I can't find my bag now. But yeah, I think it's Oregon's Best is the brand for that.
Okay. Yeah. I got some Milky Oats because I wanted the Milky Oat tops, and those are really hard to
Mhm.
find anywhere. And I found a company, it's a small, like locally owned farm that only grows like certain herbs based in Oregon called
Nice.
Oshala Farms. And
Oh,
I
nice.
actually got to meet the people once, and so I like got to talk to them, and I trust that they like know what they're doing, and they literally do like farm tours all the time, so you can literally drive there, show up and say, hey, I'd
That's
really like to see how
awesome.
you're growing things. So I like supporting them because I feel like it's not only supporting a small business, which I love doing because I'm a small business, most of my friends have small businesses, so I like doing that, but I know that they're growing things appropriately, they're not over harvesting things, you know what I mean, like they're treating the earth like we should treat the earth, and they give back to the community that they're in, and they are also working hard to like get herbs back growing that have been eradicated in some areas, as well. So
That's
they're a
awesome.
good farm. So that's another place. I'll put that in here too. Oshala Farms. I love
I
them
was gonna,
as
yeah, I
well.
was gonna
So
say put that in the chat. I was gonna say put that in the chat because I'm constantly like Star West can't keep Milky Oats in stock for
no.
one thing, and they're crazy expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I did just try. I found the name Oregon's Wild Harvest, but I
Okay.
I want multiple. I need multiple brands for
Yeah.
Milky Oats to make sure I keep in stock.
Yes. And another reason that I found them was through Sage Popham. He
Oh,
works
nice. Yeah.
had worked with them at one point, and I was like, oh, who's that? Because I'm like always interested in finding new suppliers, because like you said, some places you go to that's like my go-to, and then it's like, oh, they're out of this again or whatever, right? And so he recommended them, so I went and looked them up, and then did my due diligence. And so yeah, they're one of my other favorite ones. But I'm with you, I typically use Star West and Frontier the most, because again, the prices are better. And I ordered from Frontier back in like February, March time. And literally, like, I ordered on a Friday and I got a notification that they had arrived on like Monday. And I was like, I literally just
Uh-huh.
put my order in like late afternoon Friday. I didn't expect it till like Thursday, Friday of the next week. They showed up on Monday. I wasn't even prepared to go pick them up because I didn't expect them to show up so soon. I was like, oh crap, I got to get up there. Because I had it shipped to like a place where they, if you don't pick it up within so many like days, then they ship it back. So I was like, oh crap. So yeah,
Oh,
I really do
geez.
like
Yeah.
them. Their prices are good too.
Yeah, I love
So
them.
yeah, that's a great jumping off point. Anyone listening now or in the replay, to go ahead and do this. Jamie is very awesome and good at this. She knows what she's doing. This is her wheelhouse, is stress and burnout, right? So if you were looking for a solution to how you're feeling and you've tried everything else, or maybe you haven't and you're just ready for something different, then go look up Jamie. She's going to put her information in the chat so you can find her. And yeah, she's also in the swag bag. You can get, what was it, a free consultation and a sample tea blend from the grab bag to check her out, check out her products and whatever else. So definitely you want to go and get your swag bag if you haven't already, because Jamie has some awesome stuff in there, as does everybody else. So that is it for Jamie. Is there anything else that you want to say before we close out?
Um, no, it's been lovely talking to you though. I feel like we could talk for herbs like for a few more hours, but
Oh yeah,
I appreciate
100%.
you having me here.
Yes, I am
I
very glad you're
appreciate you
here.
having me here.
Yes, so many people are like, well, you're a herbalist. Why are you having a herbalist on? Because not every herbalist does exactly the same thing, and we all specialize in our own thing, and we all have our own approach. And I think it's so important to give people a variety of options, because my approach may not be one that resonates, but yours is, and vice versa, right? And I appreciate and love everybody
Absolutely.
in my group. And I'm not one of those people that's like competition, right? It's not competition, it's collaboration, and we're working together to help all the people that we specifically work with to help. So it's amazing having you here. Thank you again. Look her up, guys, roseoakwellness.com. She is definitely someone you want to go to if you are experiencing any of the stuff that she talked about today. And we're going to go ahead and bring Tess up now. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much for being here.
So I just realized that my computer battery cannot handle sitting outside for the entirety of my interview. So I've just moved inside. It was lovely to be sitting outside for that, but I just need to go grab my charger and plug in my computer. I will be back in a moment. Thank you.
That is fine. We will be right here waiting.
Let me get this thing plugged in. Oh, how we are attached to our devices, hey?
We are more than we want to be sometimes, but you know what? It's
Real.
unfortunately the beast that we have become as society. We need it.
Alrighty, so I'm so glad that I was able to be outside for that talk on herbs, though, because what a great way to listen and download that information. And yeah,
Right?
and now I'll be inside in the hearth in the home for mine, which is like a nice safe place to be too, because I was totally aware, and this is exactly why voice is my domain, because I was totally aware out there, like every single time somebody walked by on the sidewalk with their dog, and I'm thinking about what I'm about to be talking about and what a weirdo I am. So because I'm so afraid of using my voice and just, owning my weirdo-ness, that's exactly why I work with women who feel the same way.
Right?
Anyway.
I find that pretty much all of us do that because we've all been there, done that ourselves at one point, right?
Seriously,
Yes,
right? It's
Jamie's
the
right. She's
archetype of
just,
the weird thing.
yep.
Yeah,
Jamie
we're
just
all
put in
weird
the
here.
chat, we're all weird here. And she's 100%
Exactly.
correct. We're considered weird by a lot of people because we're not following the conventional way of doing things. And that's okay. I'm considered really weird because, I travel all the time and don't stay in one place very long. And people are like, oh my God, how do you do that? And I'm like, oh my God, how do you stay in one place? Right. So,
Yeah,
we're,
exactly. Literally, because I don't know how to
we're
do it
all
any
weird
other
in our own
way.
way.
I've tried. Trust me, I've tried to blend
Yes.
in and be normal and not stand out like a sore thumb every time I open my mouth. And yet it just
It
doesn't work. It doesn't
just,
work. The stuff just
no,
comes out.
it, it does not
Yeah,
work, and that is okay. Anybody listening, it does not have to work. That is the beauty of it, right? We're allowed to
exactly.
be whoever we authentically are. And if that is quote unquote weird, then so be it.
I think,
So
doesn't I could
Tess,
be wrong. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go
Or no,
on.
I'll just say this because I
No, no.
really want to. So I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure the
Yeah.
etymology of the word weird actually comes from one who designs her own fate. Like it's actually like it was originally attached to witches and people who had herbal power, midwives, all the, like the medicine women who were like, I'm not powerless or helpless. I actually,
Hmm.
I actually have
So
some
all
amount
of
of
us
control.
here.
So all of us here are indeed weird in the most glorious sense of the word. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Ira.
And I will take that. So Tess and I met, I can't even remember when, but ages ago, I feel
I,
like. Um,
it was when
we
I'm pretty
met
sure it was
during
when I did the
something.
modern matriarch. The modern matriarch.
Yeah.
What was it called? Thing. The modern matriarch thing that Tamsin and I put on.
Yeah.
Modern matriarch
Yes.
summit.
She
Summit. Did we
reached
call it a
out to
summit?
me. Summit. I think we called it a summit. I should know. I was in it, but I don't remember.
I should know.
It's
Oh my
as part
goodness.
of that summit, whatever we were calling it, conference. I was offering free medical astrology readings for anybody who like attended and then like signed up through like the swag bag link, right, that they had put out. And Tess decided that she really wanted one and she signed up and I did a reading, and the first thing she sent back to me was, "Oh my God, you have validated all of my weird things and I feel so happy to have gotten this reading because it's just literally validated all the things people have told me that are not right about me, but they are because it's how I'm designed to be." She's like, "Thank you." And I was like, "Oh, that was the first time anybody had ever truly like said that back to me when I'd given the reading." And I was like, "Thank you for that. That makes me
Aw.
feel so good that it's actually, what you needed." So that kind of just kickstarted our knowing each other, our relationship. And yeah, I think Tess and I get along so well because she's a Leo sun and I'm a Leo rising. So we have that same, like, energy a lot of times and it meshes really well. Uh, but yeah, that was how we met and it's kind of evolved from there. And she's been doing this work that I just absolutely love because it's something that's really important for me too, is, women using our voices. My Chiron is in Gemini, which means that my wounded part of me, right, the wounded part of my past, my current, everything, is using my voice in a way that is authentic to me and brings change and whatever else, right? And when I started having my podcast and doing things like this and, meeting with people and giving medical astrology and using my voice, I noticed that so much healed in my own life and then in turn healed in other people's lives as well, right? And so knowing Tess and what she does and how she works with women has just like, it's so near and dear to my heart and I love her and what she does. So we are going to just talk about all that wonderful goodness that Tess does for others. So I know you have a history with all of this too, and that's why you do what you do. So why don't you give everybody
Yes.
just like a brief intro into why voice over anything else?
Sorry about that. Yes, I heard every word you said. I was just multitasking as mothers do. Why voice and
Mm-hmm.
everything else?
That's fine.
I think it's found me, honestly. So it has found me. I think it's one of those things, and I suspect this is true for a lot of us who work in this kind of area, um, where I came into the world with quite a voice. And then, of course, like a lot of smaller things kind of taught me that it wasn't okay. I was just always labeled like too talkative and like, oh, you're just like so and so, but as an insult, or like all the little barbs, all the little spells that people kind of weave around you with their voices and with their reactions to you. And I'm a very sensitive woman, and I typically work with very sensitive women, because one of the things that we do, or one of the things that we have as sensitive women, is we have the ability to feel everything around us. And I had no idea how to handle that as a young person. So in my teen years and 20s, like I really was given the message that it was not okay to, be honest about how I felt, be honest about what I saw or what was true for me, like whether it was weird or whether I was just told that it was like manipulative to cry or whatever, like all these things that really shut down that part of me that was actually very healing, which now I know. So in my teens and 20s, I like cut myself. I was a self-harmer because it was my only outlet. If I couldn't, the problem is that if you can't be genuine and honest and clear and straightforward in your needs and what you want, and like in your needs and your desires and your feelings, then you'll always find backwards ways to work these things out, right? So if you can't be clear about what you want, then it's only natural to become manipulative about what you want, because we still need the things that we need, right? We need them regardless of how we get them. So if we learn that it's not okay, which I think most women do at some point or other, unfortunately in our society, we learn that it's not okay to be direct about what we need or want or feel. So we learn like sideways, twisty ways around getting them. And so one of the things that has been really important to me, and I'm skipping ahead and I'll go back because that's how it goes, is like understanding that manipulation has its place and unshaming that, because it's a really natural response to not being able to be clear and straightforward. But there isn't a baby that comes into this world that isn't clear and straightforward in their needs and wants, right? Like if we all come into the world able to scream, yell, and cry for what we want, and then that ability is eroded over time. And so I came into the world with a strong voice for sure. And then I lost it. And I think that is why I had to learn as an adult. I know that's why I had to learn as an adult, all the different ways of like healing that part of myself. And I'm absolutely 100% still in that place of working through all and undoing all of those little like spells that people wove around me to tell me that it wasn't okay to be who I was, to feel what I felt, to want what I want, etc. And it really all came to a head when I was in a deeply dysfunctional relationship that ended with like police and abuse and all this stuff. And so through that relationship, when I was really sort of not recognizing yet that I was really losing who I am and my ability to stand up for myself. Sorry, Facebook notifications. I'm closing Facebook, so I don't have to hear that anymore. Okay. I started writing again. So when I was really in the pit of like, I'm desperate, I'm stuck, I have no idea what to do, I started writing in my journal again after, maybe 15 years of not having done that. And it started to really help me see what was going on, because it can be really off-centering and confusing to be in a relationship with somebody who tells you that like things are not the way that they are. Like when you have somebody who's sort of trying to convince you that everything is your fault and everything is something other than them, and that what you've observed is not true, or what you said they said is not true, like whatever, all these little things, they add up until you deeply doubt yourself. And writing helped me start to see patterns, but it also helped me start to remember myself. And when I sort of eventually hit rock bottom, one of the first things I noticed was how ashamed I was to use my voice, like how ashamed I was to even admit the situation that I had gotten myself into, stayed in, Like it felt very like, I let this happen. I let this happen to me. I don't know how I let this happen, but I was so full of shame. And when I got that rock bottom, the universe or the friend or whatever, something sent me a guide who sent me to a school for life skills coaching. And there I started to rediscover who I was. And, people told me while I was there that the thing that drew them least to me. It was an exercise we did in week 5. So I'm like, that was the actual wording. What draws you least to this person? Was that I wasn't sharing as much as they wanted me to. And I was like, hold on, what? Like I literally introduced myself on the first day as an overly talkative person that you'll have to shut up sometimes, right? So that's how I saw myself. And then I was getting all of this reflection that was like, actually, we really want to hear more from you. You have a lot of important things to share and say, and you've had a lot of important experiences, and like, we want more of this. And that was so shocking to me. And while I was there, I was also really focusing on, I had all this, I had a traumatic childbirth with my twins. And so I was really also working on healing my, like, not even healing, just like getting back into my womb space, which is the creative organs, right? Like, so my creative organs had been totally shut down. And as I rediscovered my creative organs, I rediscovered my voice, because these things are deeply connected, which is why my workshops are all about like throat, heart, womb, because there's a channel between these that needs to be reconnected. Sometimes it's not necessarily vocal trauma that can shut us down. Sometimes it's sexual trauma that shuts us down. And so I was working on sort of both ends at the same time. Excuse my literalness, but that's how it was. I was working on both ends at the same time. And one day I was walking down the street after a sort of what felt like an unsuccessful, like sexual healing with a practitioner. And I was so angry. And I just sort of let myself finally like just be angry. And I'm walking down the street and I have these boots on, and so the boots make this lovely tapping sound on the sidewalk, right? And I'm like stomping along in my anger, and it was a little bit chilly and my hands were getting cold. So I'm just like stomping along, and I start to do this with my hands because they're cold. And then this song comes to me, and I just start singing like, I'm so fucking angry at the world we live in. And so I'm unintentionally, like without realizing it, I'm actually activating all of these somatic areas in me that have been holding on to anger. My hands, my jaw, right? My vocal cords, my feet, my legs. Like there's a reason that we stomp when we're angry. There's a reason that we clench our jaws when we're angry. There's a reason we clench our fists when we're angry, because these are all typical areas where we need somatic movement. We need movement in our bodies in order to move the anger. And I hadn't been moving the anger. I had been saying, like so many women I work with, like, no, I'm not really angry. I don't really get angry. I'm not really an angry person. I laugh because anger is a normal human emotion that we all experience. So we all experience anger. There isn't a person that doesn't experience anger, and it doesn't make us angry people. Anyway, so I'm stomping along and singing this like chant, and like literally a voice says to me, Ire, do the open mic. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, what does that have to do with like healing my birth trauma? What does that have to do with my anger? What does that have to do with anything? And yet in that moment, I heard it so clearly, and I decided to have faith, and I decided to have courage. And I emailed out like my entire community in Vancouver, where I was at the time, and said, I'm going to do the open mic on Tuesday at this cafe. Because of course I already knew exactly where the open mic was, because these things kind of work like that. I was like, I'm going to do it there. Please come and support me. And then, the next day I literally wanted to move. I was like, I'm going to disappear. They're never going to hear or see from me again. Right? Like I can't believe I did this. How could I have done this to myself? This was the stupidest thing I've ever done. I'm just going to move. I'm just going to drop out and move. I'm going to move. I'm going to leave the country. And then I breathed, and I was like, okay, wait, I don't have to leave the country. I mean, I could just send out another email and be like, never mind, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. Thanks everybody. And then I was like, okay, but also I could just go. And I could not even get on stage. Like I could go to the open mic and see how I feel. What's the worst that can happen? Like literally, what is the worst that can happen? I'll go, I'll choke. they'll still support me. Like every single person that said that they were going to come and support me, these people love me. And they'll support me even if I choke, even if I don't show up, even if I cannot speak, even if my breath doesn't work. So I did this open mic successfully. And for the first time that night, I felt completely alive in my body in a way that I had not felt since giving birth to my children. So that was actually the night of their 4th birthday. So it had been 4 years. And my body came alive. I felt turned on. I felt like I just remember this, that's how it's connected. I didn't understand that. Like when that voice said to me, do the open mic, and I was still like, well, what does that have to do with anything? Like, how is that going to how is that going to fix me or heal my problems or heal my sexual dysfunction or like anything at all? That night, I discovered that those things are deeply, deeply connected. And then I successfully got out of that relationship. I started writing music because I realized that I needed an outlet for my huge feelings and my sensitivity that was not going to harm myself, right? Like I needed a safe outlet in which I felt like I could say anything and be completely honest about how angry I was or how much things hurt me or what I saw in the world. That's one of the reasons that I love creative expression so much, because poetry and song and art allow us a space where we don't have to, like, I can put anything in a song and people typically don't have the reaction of like, well, you're overreacting or like you're too sensitive or, you know, can't you take a joke or like all the things that people question. If I were to say put out an essay, they don't question when you put it into a song. You can feel everything when you put it into a song and you can be honest about everything that you have experienced or like the pain. People might think it's hyperbole when you're being literal, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's like this place where you're allowed to put it all out there. And so I guess all of that to say, now I work with voice, but I work with voice through the medium of practicing creative expression because it led me back to myself. And it's just the most like powerful, wonderful, natural, accessible way that I believe every single human being has access to some sort of creative expression. Like it might be whittling, it might be painting, it might be songwriting, it might be journal writing, it might be scrapbooking, it might be like there's something that everybody can do. And it helped me lead me back to myself. It helped me lead me back to what was important to me, to my value, to my worth. Like when I felt at my most worthless, it helped me also just see where I was feeling ashamed, where I was holding myself back, where I was like, it just helped me organize myself from the inside out, which is how I work. So I work with creative expression and I work with the somatics of the voice and the whole yoni, the whole womb space, the whole thing, because these two things are so deeply connected and the creative organs are obviously connected to our creativity. It seems so obvious now, but I remember when I discovered this like 7 years ago and I was like, what? That doesn't seem real. It is real. And it's extraordinary, the breakthroughs that I have witnessed in women who don't see themselves as creative people, who aren't necessarily seeking, like, it doesn't have to be that you're seeking a creative career or something. But I've seen women go from like, well, I decided to do this because I want to be more honest in my friendships or my relationship or my business or whatever, because it can be anything, right? We use our voice in everything. And then they've been like singing their own poems. And just going, I didn't know this was in me at all. I didn't know I had this. And now I get messages from women singing while they walk through the forest. And they're like, I didn't know. And it's just, it touches me so deeply because I know how healing it is for the entire body. You know, it's a way to tone the vagus. It's like, it's a physical healing, but it's also emotional and spiritual and mental. And, well, obviously, I just love it. So that was a lot. I think I said a lot. I don't know if I finished every sentence because that's what it's like with me sometimes. So, so now ask me anything after like 20 minutes.
Yes.
So you can see I'm healing my.
I resonate with so much of that because I was always told like similar things, like you talk too much, you're too loud, you're too gregarious, like literally, like that was just like, just sit down and be quiet. No one wants to hear what you have to say. Let someone else speak for once because you're just too much for us in this household, right? You talk too fast, you talk too little, I mean, it was like literally anything that I tried to ever like say or do was just something was wrong with it. And you don't realize how much that like not only hurts your ability to speak up when you do need something, but you're right, it hurts like your creativity, and there's like all this like stuff that gets trapped. And I have found now that I am, healing all of this, that one of my favorite things when I get like upset or angry or just like I need to express something, but like writing isn't doing it for me because I'm a writer too, and I write all my stuff down since I wasn't ever allowed to use my voice growing up. I wrote everything into something, a story, just a journal. I have a lot of I've an entire basically like crate that is just filled with my writings from the time I can remember, as young as I can remember, all the way up until recent times, because that's how I would express myself since no one else apparently wanted to hear anything I had to say. Paper wanted to hear what I had to say, so I would write. Well, now writing, I still write a lot. Don't get me wrong. I love to write. And if anybody has, had anything to ever do with me, working with me, they know I like to write because I write you tons of notes when you see me because I like to write. But my favorite thing lately is to like literally go outside somewhere, either off by myself, around other people if I feel comfortable with them, and just literally put in my earbuds, play a song of some kind. I don't care what the song is typically. And I dance to it, and I do like these weird vocalizations, or I just scream and like stomp while I'm dancing. It's not really considered dancing, I think. I think it's just stomping and like moving my body and like yelling and
Movement.
making weird
Movement.
and then yeah, like 10 minutes later I'll come in, I'm like, oh, I feel fine, and then I can move forward with whatever, right? But like my body just really craves that like movement. And I'm realizing that I was stifled too as a kid. I was like, sit still. You're supposed to be a lady. Sit down on the couch. Have your legs crossed. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't be moving. No, you can't be outside playing with the boys in roughhousing. You're supposed to be inside knitting and I don't know, cooking or whatever else they decided, right, was a female activity. And I'm just really like, fuck that. It doesn't help. That's not my way of being creative. My daughter, on the other hand, that kid will crochet the shit out of whatever when she's, feeling like that's her creativity, is that, or she does digital art or like physical art. She's like literally drawing stuff, she's working with clay because she can pound it when she needs to, right? So that's her expression and she's so good at it. But like mine was always writing, only because I felt like I couldn't use my voice. And now I found that it's my voice that I tend to go to first before writing. And so I really appreciate you just saying that too, that, you started off with just writing the songs. You maybe didn't even sing them, but you were writing them. And now I know you do singing too, because I've heard you. And it's like you kind of stepped up, you know what I mean? And I love that you've gone from, I only feel safe to write it down, to now I feel safe to singing these to other people and using my voice to express it. And that's such an amazing transition to make.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, the movement piece that you brought in, it's like, it's so interesting how, like we make ourselves small in so many different ways that sometimes are imperceptible until suddenly we're in a situation where we want to like stand up and shout something. This literally happened to me. I was in a workshop and we were asked something, and I really, like, my body wanted to stand up and shout something, and I clamped it down. And I did that over and over again until it became physically, I mean, it's physically uncomfortable to actually do that. It's physically uncomfortable in the short term, but in the long term, the effects of it are, I mean, like all sorts of things. Anxiety, because we're not moving and expressing ourselves in the way we need to. And anxiety is always like a need for movement. Depression, shutting yourself down and making yourself small. Thyroid cancer or issues, like obviously anything in the throat. I mean, there's just so many different things where you don't realize where you're storing all this tension in the body. Because what happens if if my body says, stand up and shout, and I don't do that, I physically have to make tension, make it stop, right? So instead of allowing this energy to flow through, you have to physically create the tension. And then the tension is actually somewhere in your body, somewhere in your fascia or your, whatever, where you are creating these balls of tension. And tension, you can't grow in, you can't expand from tension, right? You can't respond in tension. Tension is like becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's what shame is. Shame is like little balls of tension in the body where you can't grow in that. You can't expand in a place of tension. You can't respond properly from a place of tension. And so we create these little pockets in our bodies where there's a lack of movement when like desperately all they want to do is move. And so when I do like my workshops, we do a mixture. We do writing, right? And we share, or some people don't, because I never force anybody to, but most people always have, even if they say, I'm not going to, or I might not. Everybody always does. So you know how that goes. Like, that's why I love circles of women, because we see ourselves in each other, and then we have more compassion for ourselves because we realize that, oh my gosh, I just like wept for that person's story, and I never let myself weep for myself or for my own like child and what happened to me. But then I heard that person's story and I realized that it matters. It matters. Like, it's real. I'm allowed to be hurt by these things. So we write, we vocalize, we like stand up and like ground ourselves and punch and yell, no, and like, and we dance and we move, because it's a full body practice. It's not, learning to use your voice is not just sitting there saying, I'm going to talk about the things that are important to me. Though that comes after, but it comes because of this full body experience that we finally allow ourselves to have, right? Which is like, to move in the ways that we want to move, even though somebody told us that it was, gosh, how many times are girls told like that they're moving in a sexy way or that they're being too sensual when they're literally just like little girls moving, or like teenagers just moving in the ways that feels good to their body. Or we're told that it's like too aggressive or too physical or too much or too big. And the same thing with the voice, and the same thing with our hearts, with our sensitivity. And I see now my sensitivity was always a strength, because my sensitivity is the thing that allows me to create beauty out of anything, out of any pain, out of any suffering. Like, it's my alchemy. And it's not a bad thing once you are aware, I think, of what is yours and what isn't yours. Like, when my boundaries were very, like bleeding into, for example, like my ex-husband, right? When I thought that all of his actions were my responsibility, because I didn't have that clarity of boundaries, and I didn't understand that like my responsibility ended at my skin, and my voice. What was the beginning of that sentence? My ADHD brain just abandoned me there, like halfway through a sentence. What was I saying? For heaven's sakes. This is how it goes sometimes. I was talking about my ex-husband, and I don't even remember the end of my sentence now. So if you remember any part of it, give me a clue, because I'm just lost.
We were talking about somatics, moving our bodies. I don't. My brain has also decided to abandon us.
Oh my God. Yeah, whatever I was saying, the point is that it's like, it's a full body thing. Boundaries. Yeah. If you're not sure of your boundaries, like, you can't ever be clear on, if you're not clear on what's yours and what's not yours, then it's one of the ways that you walk on eggshells all the time. And it's one of the ways that your sensitivity can be used against you, right? Or your sensitivity can be a detriment, because instead of observing the world and the pain in the world and the suffering that people go through, you're absorbing it all because you don't know where your responsibility ends. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you so much, Jamie, for that. I'm like, I really just need a clue. Yes, the boundaries. Once you have that, and that's part of the practice. Once you have that, and you know what you're responsible for, and also what you are not responsible for, that's like, it's really a whole full body experience, I think, learning to use your voice. And the thing that was a game changer for me was understanding that it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be some weird, mystical, esoteric thing. Like, I love that stuff, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have to be like that. It's exactly like learning to use your voice is exactly the same thing as like learning to get stronger, buffer arms. You know, you go to somebody who knows how to help you do that, and you practice exercises and your arms get buffer. And we all kind of believe that this is possible for us. Like, we all believe that we can make a muscle stronger in our bodies, but then we think, but it's not ever going to be possible for me to speak my truth. Like, that feels like a wall. There's a wall there. There's a boulder that is not, I cannot push this boulder up this hill. It's not possible. That's not a thing. But actually, when you practice physical exercises, right? This is where the whole somatics comes into it. When you practice physical exercises that are completely manageable, then suddenly it becomes like the boulder turns into a smaller and smaller and smaller boulder until it's just a pebble you're tossing around. Like, it was absolutely unthinkable for me once upon a time, the idea of saying like no to somebody. It was unthinkable to me to go on a stage or sing out loud to people who, like, live people who were there in front of me. I've now done open mic, I've done stand up, I've done improv on many stages, I've done like, I could just break into song right now, and that was not possible for me. But it's just little exercises, just like if you wanted to make your arms stronger, you would do those exercises and eventually your arms would be stronger. And that for me was the game changer of understanding how you know, we have power over our own epigenetics, and we have creative power, a certain amount of creative power over our own lives, and, you know, where we choose to go with them and how we choose to respond to pain and to the events in our lives and to the things that happen to us. And that's another reason I love creative expression, because you can turn anything into beauty. And that's a superpower that sensitive women have, or sensitive people. I mean, I think all people have it, but I especially work with sensitive women, so that's why I'm highlighting them. Because we use it against ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we eat ourselves from the inside until we figure out how to find a place where we can express it in a way that feels safe, appropriate, responsible. You know, I don't believe I'm hurting people with my songs. And I'm still hung up on writing a memoir because I'm so afraid of the people that I might hurt when I say what happened. So it's like, you know, one thing at a time, but
yeah. It's not easy
to sum it all up.
that out there, you know. Yeah. It's not easy to put that out there, I don't think, sometimes, that, you know, your truth, because other people that are involved in whatever stories those aren't always going to see your truth as the true way that things happen, because their perception, their understanding of it, their version of events is going to be potentially different from yours, especially if they were kind of like the aggressor in that situation. And it's hard to put that out there, but I think it can be so freeing when you do that, you know, because you are standing up and saying, this is what happened to me. This is, you know, my truth, my perception of it. This is how I view what happened. And it's not really your responsibility how other people take that. Their response to that is theirs alone, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's, I mean, for me, it's like, I think for most of the women that I work with, it's manyfold, right? Because being sensitive means that often we have deep love and respect for the people who hurt us, even though they hurt us. And like, for me, that's not going to go away. I'm not going to stop loving somebody that hurt me. I have compassion for them, and I understand where their responses and instincts came from. And I can own that. Like, that's how I'm built. Okay. So I'm not going to try to change it. That's how it is. And yet, of course, through this process is learning how to put yourself first and learning how to trust that voice of, you know, the same voice that told me do open mic. It's told me other things. Right. And so part of it is trusting that process of like, I can do this in the most self-responsible and loving way. And I know that it's going to hurt people that I love. And that doesn't mean that it isn't still all made of love, because I know things have hurt me that were made of love, that helped propel me into the person that I am, into owning my voice, into sharing my story, into discovering my own internal power. I actually believe that was all made of love. That's just my personal belief. Like, that's my personal, I should say, experience, actually, is that I've been able to especially through creative expression, transmute all of that and see how there was love somewhere deep behind it all. And so I have to trust that if somebody on the other end, for example, of me writing a memoir, feels deeply hurt in a similar way, you're always allowed, like, there's post-traumatic growth is a thing, right? And we are the only people who, with support, with tools, with skills, with a loving, unshaming community, we are the only people who can choose whether we stay stuck in PTSD, like in disorder, or if we can use that as a bouncing off point for growth. So we choose that. I chose growth. I chose to make love out of it. I chose to make beauty and truth and love out of it. And I believe that the people on the other side are allowed to make the same choice. And I also believe that they're allowed not to, right? And so at the end of the day, like I one of the things that I create with women that I work with is like, we'll create a sort of list of like beliefs that we have. Like, like I believe I'm allowed to tell my own story. And I believe that everybody in the world is allowed to tell their own story. Like, my abusers are allowed to tell their story from their perspective. Of course. And then I have to deal with that. And I know that I will, and I won't hate myself. Like, I won't abandon myself. I won't hate myself, because I've learned those skills too. And so this kind of list of beliefs can be a reminder when we get scared. We go back and we're like, oh yeah, like I'm allowed to do this. I believe they're allowed to do this. I would fight for the right for anybody to be allowed to tell their own story, to share their own truth about their own experience. Like, everybody in the world should have that right. And if I believe everybody in the world should have that right, I certainly am going to back myself to have that right, you know? And that's just an example of like one belief that I hold that helps remind me that I'm allowed, right? And it's hard and it's scary. I'm not going to pretend it's not.
Right.
But that's also why like I'm such a huge advocate for community, because I don't think that you can do it. I mean, well, I do think that some extraordinary people do it all alone, but I certainly couldn't do it all alone. And I definitely believe it's easier in community when you have a community of women who will love you and support you and have your back and believe that you're allowed to tell your own story or sing your own story or use your voice or whatever, even if they don't agree with it. That's not the point. It was never the point. Like, I don't have to agree with you in order to believe that you're allowed to share your story and your experience and your truth, and that it will be healing for you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I have a community, because we learn to share our voices in community in this like safe, non-judgmental, unshaming zone. And then it becomes easier to share it in the real world, right? Like, beyond this safe circle. Or for some people, it stays in the safe circle, but it still heals them in the meantime. So whatever, it's a win-win.
Right. Yeah.
I
That's
really
something
want
that's
to
been brought
apologize
up
just during my own interview.
That is,
Yeah.
that's fine. You're literally like, that's been like the theme this whole weekend. It seems everybody seems to have things like support is so important, community is important, having trusted people in your life is important. That seems to be totally like one of the things that just keeps being brought up. Everything that we're talking about is having that support, having that support, having that support. But it's true. It works so much better, all of this stuff, all of this modalities we're talking about, if you feel supported in following whatever approach you've taken, right? In their case, voice, and people coming to you for healing their voice. Having that community support is so important while they're doing that. With Jamie earlier, having the support of maybe herself, and maybe she has a community that other people, and while they're healing their bodies, because I've found too, when you're on that healing journey of healing from whatever it is that you're looking to heal from, it gets really lonely really quickly, because as you start healing, in this case your voice, you start speaking up about things and setting better boundaries and not letting people walk all over you, and before you know it, you have no quote unquote friends left, right? And you're like, oh, now I'm all alone. And it's hard because you're like, well, I'm obviously doing the wrong thing because everybody's leaving me. but that's really not true, right? You're doing the right thing and people are leaving who are not the right people for you. And so I love that you
Yeah.
have that community aspect too, because it's so important. Especially I find as women, we're like community beings. We do much better when we have like a circle of, other women or supportive people in our lives that we can like commune with and we can talk to when we need it and we can go when, like have that support when we need it, because it's so important for our own physical health, mental health, spiritual health as women to have that.
Yeah.
And especially I
Yeah,
think when you're
it's
learning
how
to
we
use your
create
voice,
safety.
because society, yeah, exactly. And we need that safety a lot of times to move forward in our healing. And,
Mhm.
society has, told women for so long that our voices don't need to be heard, or they don't want to hear them, or we have to make ourselves smaller for things. And so having that community where you have people going, fuck that, you can be whatever, let's go, and cheering you on can really help you feel more confident and, moving forward with using your voice.
Yeah, exactly. And I do tend, like Jamie said, we heal within the supportive community. And it's true, we heal because we are compassionately witnessed, first and foremost, right? Like that's such a huge piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to work with women who, like myself, have gone through, like, okay, let's say we're on more the codependent side of the spectrum, right? Like I'm not saying that you have to be codependent, but we're definitely considerate of other people. We want other people to feel comfortable around us. We want people to like us, and that's really natural because belonging is a human need. It's not a desire. It's a need. When you're a child, if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
belonging, you'll die because you need belonging within your caregiving or within your family or within your unit that's taking care of you. Like it is a human requirement. So you have to find that belonging somewhere first. And because I tend to work with women who need a lot of mirroring, which is like, I really love that phrasing, which I got from Kimberly Johnson. She was talking about it. And she's like, I don't like the word codependent. Like we're all dependent on each other. We're supposed to be, right? She's like, but I need a lot of mirroring and I always have done. And I love that because that's what it is. Like women, we create
Mm-hmm.
safety through communicating with one another, through connecting with one another. Because, long ago in the village, we were back in the village with the children acting like prey while the men were being predators, looking for, beasts for us to eat and whatnot. Like this is simplifying things, but we create safety by checking in with one another, by talking with one another, by
Mm-hmm.
being close to one another. That's how women create safety. And so having that community space and having that place where there's like no judgment here and no shame here, you get to say the things finally that you never got to say, and you get to express the things finally that you never got to express, or that you were told you were weird or too much or whatever. I mean, it's like you said society, and it made me want I like it makes me, it's such a vague thing that like it made me want to instantly break
Mm-hmm.
it down into like, okay, if it's not in your family, which it probably is at some point, because, well, let's face it, as mothers, we're often overwhelmed by the child who will never stop talking. So, because we don't have a village. So if it's not in your family, then
Yeah.
in school, I got in trouble all the time in school for talking or passing notes, obviously. Or church, I got in trouble in church because I was talking out of turn. Or like whatever religious place you are
Mm-hmm.
that you're not supposed to talk. And it's not even like I went to a church where women weren't supposed to talk, but children aren't supposed to be loud and talking all the time, like anywhere in this society,
Mm-hmm.
like anywhere. They're not allowed to be loud in the supermarket, or like, I mean, not allowed, but people will complain about it, right? And like it's really easy to internalize this stuff. So it really just adds up because it really is like it comes at you from everywhere. It just comes at you from every direction. Um, but for me, one of the most important realizations that I had along this journey was like, I need a place to express, and it's my responsibility to create that place. Not everybody in society wants to or has to listen to me, right? But there is going to be a group of people that do want to listen to me. Okay, not everybody in the world likes Taylor Swift, but she has her people. She found people. And the only way you can find the people who want to listen to you and who want to hear what you have to say is to say the damn things, right? Which is the hard part. But at some point, you have to start saying the things, because then you create the community that wants to hear you say the things or sing the things or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, read your poetry or whatever it is. Like, And so if you're I'm the only one who can do that. I'm the only person who's responsible for finding that appropriate, responsible place to be heard. And so I had to learn how to validate myself first, in order to start then speaking up and then finding that community and creating that space where it was totally normal and appropriate for me to be heard a lot. And that was a game changer for me, honestly, because nobody actually owes me that. And as adult women, that's one of the things we have to come to terms with. All the things that we didn't get that now we are responsible for creating for ourselves. And it's like, you grieve because it sucks and it should have been there. The village should have been there, and you should have had good role models, and you shoulda. And they didn't. And now we have to create it ourselves, but it's definitely easier in a community.
Yeah, it definitely is. That support makes a world of difference for sure. I think we are close to out of time, so I don't want to go too much over if we can help it, but let everybody know where they can find you if they are interested in also working on healing their voices and doing one of your workshops.
That's easy. It's just tessfairbridge.com, so it's my name. I guess my name isn't actually fully on screen. I'm just Tess here, so. But yes, tessfairbridge.com. From there, there's the voice community, or I do workshops. I do songwriting workshops, and I do a voice activation workshop, which is more like the somatics. The songwriting workshop's just really fun. We write a song together in the workshop using, I just ask questions and people answer the questions and give me metaphors and give me feelings and whatever. And we write a song together, a whole song. And that's really exciting. I don't know why, but I always love doing that. It's really it's really powerful for people to see how accessible it is, because it's a healing tool. But anyway, everything can be found on that website, tessfairbridge.com. So that's honestly the easiest way. That's it. My community is here.
All right.
I'll put it tessfairbridge.com/voice. That's the community, the membership, where everything else is included. The songwriting workshops are included if you're in voice. The voice activation is included if you're in voice. Everything is included. There's the whole course on self-validation, or healthy validation, I should say, because it's not all self. And there's all sorts of other fun stuff coming. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tess. That was amazing. And I think what you do is so needed for sure, because there are so many that are still like we used to be, right? Afraid to use our voices. And it's important to find that community to support you in learning to use it and stepping into your true authentic self, even if that true authentic self isn't something that everybody is 100% on board with. And that's okay. Let's all be weird together, right? Being weird is good.
Yeah. It breaks my heart even just to I feel like I've only discovered as an adult how many adult women don't have really close friendships and are scared to be their authentic self. And I'm like, well, those two things are the same thing. You can't have close friendships if you're not being your authentic self. You have to somehow, right, find a way to break that barrier first. And so voices for business owners who want to write the book, or like me, but it's also for people who just need to be clearer in their relationships, their families, with their friends, or make friends. I mean, when do we not need a voice? I'm waiting.
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ire, for doing this and for having me. It's been a blast. I love talking about what I do. So I love talking about myself.
Yes.
I can own that now. That gave me a lot of shame for a lot of years. And now I'm like, no, I'm a carer and we have a purpose.
Right. And it's okay to want to talk about yourself. It's also that Leo sun, we need to, that Leo energy, you need to talk about yourself some, or else it's literally constricting and restrictive, and you have the same problem that you were having before, right? Feeling like all that tension is trapped inside instead of going where it should go. So
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So we are going to I am so glad you were here. Thank you. For everybody here, we are going to go and take our lunch break now. We will meet back at 3:15 in the Google Meet session for the breakout sessions. And so we will see you all there. Link is in the chat, or you should be getting that email for it. So we will talk to you guys very shortly. Bye.